Happy Hump Day to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to the Wednesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. We do have a rather interesting severe weather situation developing over Central Europe. Nothing really uncommon for this time of the year, but nevertheless, we do have a deep area of low pressure to the north of the UK that is sending a cold front eastwards, and that is marking the boundary between fresher Atlantic air and some hot, humid continental air, given rise to showers and thunderstorms. So if you look at this analysis chart of the Met Office for midnight, starting midnight into today, you can see the frontal system exiting the southeast of the British Isles, that deep area of low pressure continuing to bring winter conditions across the tops of the mountains of Scotland, but also very gusty winds, 59 mile per hour wind at Stornoway, 74, 75 mile per hour over the western Highland Range yesterday afternoon. So we did have gusty winds. They have continued through the course of today. But as we move towards the middle portions of today, that frontal system, there's actually two fronts moving into the central region of Europe. Now you can see here of the icon model, we do have some fairly contrasting air. You can see here reasonably chilly air at 850. Moving into the west of mainland Europe, we've got some very warm air out ahead of it. That is creating the lift and activating some lively showers, thunderstorms, and also some potentially supercell thunderstorms at that. That will generate and is generating plenty of lightning. We're seeing large hail, flash flooding locally, and also some damaging wind gusts. This is the latest radar imagery showing that area of low pressure to the north. There's the boundary. There is the convection blowing up over the central region of Europe here. And if we look at the latest lightning imagery, you can see that we've got a cluster of thunderstorms over southeastern France into the western Alpine region here. And I think over the next 24 to 36 hours, we're going to continue to see that line moving eastwards, generating severe thunderstorms and the problems that go with that. Looking at the Estofx website here, you can see that there is a level 3, which is the highest level in terms of severe weather across this central swathe of Europe through the course of today. Looking at the current temperatures, we've got the somewhat fresher air moving into the west mainland, but you can see out ahead of that frontal system, we've got the generally upper 20s to low, even mid-30s down into the Balkan region here. So we'll monitor this situation over Central Europe over the next few days and watch what happens with that. In terms of here at home, we have seen some fresh snow over the tops. This was the case last June. In fact, we had 8 or 9 straight days of fresh snowfall over the Cairngorm Plateau, for example. But this was a capture of the Loch Morlich live camera this morning. This was sent in by Lee at Highland Weather, showing the fresh snow over the top of Cairngorm, and that has been the case for the last couple of days. You can see here another image captured from yesterday, showing the snowfall over the top of Cairngorm. Generally, the temperatures have been pegged back over the last couple of days, both this afternoon and yesterday, across particularly western Scotland. Very strong gusty winds coming in off the Atlantic here, associated with that low. Temperatures held at only 8.2 at Loch Liscarnock with a wind chill of 4. We've also got Tulloch Bridge or First at 8.9 with a wind chill of 5.6. Further east you go with shelter, with more in the way of bright skies, less in the way of shower activity. We're talking about 14 to 16 Celsius. Again, reasonably fresh, but feeling pleasant in that sunshine. And then further south across, we did actually have at the early this afternoon a temperature of only 7, wind chill of 1 Celsius at the Drumalbin in South Lanarkshire. So yeah, a little bit of elevation, but nevertheless, to see an early June afternoon temperature of only 7 with a wind chill of 1. That is reasonably noteworthy, but that seems to be a little bit of a thing in recent Junes, seeing some of these colder outbreaks taking place. But even down across the south, we're seeing temperatures held in the mid to high teens this afternoon. Same for Ireland and Northern Ireland. We've only got a 10.2 at Lough Fay. It feels like a 7.2 Celsius. So, looking at the overview of the icon model here, you can see continue with this rash of showers aboard that fairly brisk westerly wind. We've got an area of low pressure that moves across Ireland through the overnight tonight and into tomorrow. That is going to bring a spell of persistent rain, some breeze associated with that as well. And you can see that then creeps across England, Wales, southern Scotland through the course of tonight and in through a decent swathe of tomorrow. We're going to see that system eventually clear out into the North Sea, and we're also going to see some fairly heavy persistent rainfall drifting southwards here. Areas of the southern UK has not seen anywhere near as much rainfall as further north here, so that will be welcome news to gardeners, agriculture, and other interests, water interests. That is, you can see here that frontal system then moves into the near continent again, reinforcing that kind of fresher feel into the western mainland of the continent. That is going to bump into warmer air further east and generate some showers and thunderstorms. I wanted to just basically cover a couple of interesting aspects to consider. Let's actually first of all look at the drop in temperature, sea surface temperature anomalies over the last 7 days. And because of the return of the westerlies, we've seen water temperatures, particularly west of the UK and Ireland, cool by several degrees. That is obviously thanks to some upwelling. We've got stronger winds coming in. Obviously, throughout the course of the spring, we've had less in the way of cloud cover and wind. That has been allowing those water temperatures to warm to +3, +4 Celsius above the average. But because of the westerlies returning, we've seen the water temperatures coming down as a consequence of that. Also, the subtropical Atlantic seen cooling anywhere from the north of the Canaries and off the Portuguese coast all the way across the United States. We've got a decent amount of cooling taking place north of the Caribbean, through the Caribbean, eastern portions of the Gulf of Mexico, off Mexico itself because of Alvin and potential tropical storm Barbara that is possibly going to develop through the course of the next 24 hours or so. And also we've seen some sharp cooling take place South China Sea, south of Japan, through the Bay of Bengal, the Arabian Sea. Now we've seen the passage of the Manchulian Oscillation, stronger southwesterly winds, early onset of the monsoon. Those southwesterly winds have caused some cooling to take place both in the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea, which is quite interesting. So that is that. Like I say, basically just covering some thoughts today as opposed to anything too structured. Looking at the latest high-resolution imagery over the Americas and the Atlantic, you can see obviously the convection over northern South America. We've also got the disturbed weather over the southeastern United States associated with a frontal boundary. We need to keep an eye on that. There's a very small possibility of some development off the southeast coast of the US. We've got quite a distinct plume of Saharan dust that is moving into the western side of the tropical Atlantic, into the Caribbean. You can see it very clearly on this imagery, but I want to draw your attention to this secondary plume, another lobe of very high concentrated Saharan dust coming off the continent out over the Atlantic basin here. So we've got one push moving into the Caribbean. We've got another now exiting Africa. We've obviously seen the transport of Canadian wildfire smoke off North America across the Atlantic aboard the jet, and obviously tangled up with the areas of low pressure. That was very much evident through the course of yesterday, and even if you look at the circulation today, it's still dragging in some dust, not dust, but the smoky air from those wildfires off Canada. So let's have a quick look then at some tweets here by Christian, or retweets by Christian anyway, on Twitter. I want to show you this here. This is quite interesting, of atmospheric G2 showing precipitation and the upper heights. Now, it does look as if we are going to see in the day 1 through 5 the continuation of fairly wet weather, especially southern UK and into the near continent here, particularly so Germany, Low Countries, northern portions of France. I know this is quite difficult to see. Can I blow this up any to see if it's any clearer? Probably not. No, it's not going to allow me to do that. So I do apologise that it's difficult to see. Day 6 through 10, still wetter across the northern UK, but we're starting to dry things out over Central Europe. We're also turning a little bit wetter across, say, Iberia. But then in the 11 to 15 day, you notice that we're drying things out across the UK, Ireland. This has been highlighted now for probably the best part of 2 weeks, actually, or at least 10 days, that we would see higher pressure building into the UK. Now, granted, it probably is a little bit later than anticipated, but nevertheless, it looks as if the modelling is indicating day 1 through 5, through the 11 to 15, we are going to see pressure building into the northern half of Europe here, settling things down, warming things up, and going from a below average to above average in terms of temperatures. Another interesting tweet here by James Peacock of comparing the 12 driest springs in the Hadley UK precipitation data set. 2025's mean in terms of geopotential heights and sea level pressure pattern most resembles, so basically what was seen during the spring just gone and the past, basically it resembles 1938. I'm sure not many people can remember that, or 1997. Obviously that's a little bit more recent, but basically it's showing the rarity of the spring that has just taken place, and also the pattern at the beginning of the month of June. So certainly very interesting, actually, that this has been a very rare spring pattern, and resembles only mainly 1938 and 1997, according to James. Now, another tweet here by Christian showing that the spring season dominated mainly by a block in circulation, almost stationary over the UK, with drought and very hot weather. While it was rainy across Spain, northern Italy, the situation that led to strong warming of the SSTs, as already mentioned, anomalies exceeding 2 Celsius. And you can see here that between March and May 2025, that block was bang slap over the UK, the strongest, most anomalous area of high pressure anywhere in the northern hemisphere, was pretty much bang slap over the north of the UK throughout the course of the spring season. Now, what's interesting is we're now dealing with the deepest low anywhere in the northern hemisphere across the UK and Ireland here. So yeah, quite interesting how the pattern overall evolves. Now, let me just see if I can find anything else that I was going to show you, and we'll move on then. This was the setup here for the month of May. So again, that blocking area of high pressure essentially just to the northwest of the UK and Ireland, generating a warmer than average UK and Ireland, and a cooler Central and Eastern Europe here. Obviously, we had wet conditions down across Iberia, and quite often when you've got wet UK, you've got a drier, warmer Spain, and vice versa, the other way about as well. So let me just see here if there's anything else that I can show. So obviously we're seeing the eastward progress of the MJO. We are still expecting to see the warmer air getting lifted north here. So let's move to the ECMWF and look at the bigger, broader picture. We've still got that area of low pressure in the north driving the Western European pattern. Essentially, this is the driving force behind fresher conditions, unsettled conditions over Central Europe because of the clash of Atlantic air versus continental. We've got all sorts of weather in between that. But generally, this is driving fresher Atlantic air into the western side of the continent, and that will sweep eastwards over the coming days. But if we play through this loop here, the overview chart, so this is the overview precip cloud temperature and pressure. You can see that system that I highlighted a few minutes ago moving across Ireland and England and Wales. Continue with that blustery regime, but then we're starting to see a spread in the isobars. The next system moves in off the Atlantic according to the ECM. And then we've got a little bit of a ridge trying to build in towards the latter half of the upcoming week. We've got another system moving in off the Atlantic as we move towards the early and middle portions of next week. And then it looks as if there is some changes showing up towards the end of next week here. Area of low pressure stays more to the west of the UK, winds up, and then that opens the door to something warmer trying to come up from the south. So let's have a look at the 850s then and see what that is suggesting here. Skip back. You can see here that we've got an opportunity with the position of the low to the west. Some warmer air. Again, very subject to change, it has to be said. There is nothing written in stone, but you can see here that there is an attempt at seeing the 15 Celsius isotherm moving into the southern UK towards the latter half of next week. So that's the 12th of June. So that would be week 2, essentially, of June. That was part of the forecast. That was part of both the summer forecast and the June outlook, that in the week 2 we would see the potential of something warmer coming up from the south. So let's move on then. You can see here the cooler air wrapping around that low at the moment, bringing the suppressed daytime and nighttime temperatures. Continue to play through. Again, more systems moving in off the Atlantic, shutting the door to anything warm coming up from the south. But then if we see the low winding up out over the Atlantic, that then opens the opportunity. But it could be a thundery warm surge. It might not be clear blue skies, southerly winds and temperatures all of a sudden just shoot through the roof. It might be quite a complex setup here where you've got energy associated with that plume of warmth, and therefore we have the chance of seeing thunderstorms breaking out as well, maybe even some flash flood situation developing as well. Another little bit of a retreat from that warmer, and then again we've got another shot of something warmer coming up from the south, but a reasonably complex outlook, it has to be said, in the medium range. This is the GFS then, and then we'll end with this. You can see here we'll play through the loop, areas of low pressure, shutting that door to the warm air, trying to push up from the south. GFS now starting to show on board. Now, this was not on the GFS over the last few days. It's now on the GFS, seeing that plume of warmth coming up from the south as we move towards the latter half of next week. And we're even flirting with the 20 Celsius isotherm, which is very, very warm air, it has to be said. I wouldn't necessarily jump on board with that too quickly, but you can see here, certainly the GFS, much more optimistic about seeing warmer air and proper summer warmth, may I add, moving into the UK towards the latter half of next week. So we will wait and see what happens. Keep it right here on the channel. I hope you're enjoying what you're seeing, and I'll see you again next time with more. Bye for now.